Pete Hegseth and the Department of War are on a new one today, and it's a crazy one as well, because they're now trying to claim that there is an actual distinction between alpha males and beta males, unironically. Not like internet memes and irony, but they actually want to create a real categorization for this in the military and in, I guess, the government overall, maybe even just government-recognized alpha and beta categories. Now, the reason why they're doing this is as sort of a justification for another policy they're trying to push, where they want to maybe mandate, we're going to find out all the little, integral details in a moment, but they're going to be putting the US military on anabolic steroids. You don't have to know that much about lifting or science or anything like that to know that anabolic steroids famously have some pretty serious consequences on the human body. It's not like ooh, these are potential side effects thing. These are the side effects. It is generally not recommended for young men to get on anabolic steroids because that's when your body should be at its peak performance or peak potential for peak performance when you're working out or training it. Right? Like, getting a bunch of 20-somethings on anabolic steroids is just stupid. It's just stupid. Now, if you've been lifting for a while, and now you're in your 40s or 50s, your T levels are dropping, it's getting to be hard, like, you're healing slower, you're recovering from workouts slower, your gains are decreasing, your appetite's gotten worse, I can totally get why you might get on anabolic steroids if having a shredded physique is high on your priority list. I ain't gonna judge you. Do what you want. That's on you. That's gender affirming care as far as as far as I care, and I'm in favor of that. So, with that in mind, I'm not a big fan of the idea of getting a bunch of 20-something military guys on steroids. It doesn't sound like it's good for them, and much like a lot of choices young men make while they're in the military, it's going to have severe, forever consequences on their body, and when they try to get medical treatment for it, you know what they're going to get told? It's a kind of a meme at this point. Sorry, non-service related injury, even when it's absolutely, unequivocally a service-related injury. Trust me, I don't know how familiar you guys are with this, but within the military community, I'm always hearing people say that it's sort of a meme that they're always trying to deny any coverage for people who got chronic injuries during their service. It's a big problem. Anyway, I've got a video here from a veteran YouTuber named, well, I should say veteran space, or veteran dash, veteran comma, YouTuber? This guy is a military veteran and YouTuber, not a veteran to YouTube. He made a video about this news, and he knows his stuff, so I thought we'd go ahead and check it out, because I've got a lot to say about this.
I think someone saw those Egyptian cop videos and got a little too excited. It would appear that the American military is about to be way more masculine than ever, at least in the hormonal department, because
they definitely will be.
Are still off the table. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth just released a video and policy stating that service members over the age of 30 will be getting mandatory yearly testosterone screens.
Okay, this is still pretty cringe, to be honest, but honestly, of all the cases in which the chuds have done something like this, I'm actually kind of on board with this. The irony is that this is the right horseshoeing themselves into being in favor of gender-affirming care. Now, granted, it's for cis people and exclusively men in the military, but nonetheless, I do think that it's a little bit funny, a little bit ironic, and yeah, I mean, if you're over 30, I'm not gonna lie, the age limit is weird. Like, the 30, I don't know. I feel like you're still pretty capable of being full natty, like a full natty beast in your 30s. Now, when you get into your mid-40s, I would say, like early to mid-40s is when maybe being a natty beast is less viable. But man, 30? Mandatory? Okay, so the screenings for testosterone are mandatory, which basically means the military is going to cover, our tax dollars are going to cover these screenings, these hormone screenings. Is it going to be mandatory that they start taking T boosters? Let's find out.
In order to see if they're within those optimal ranges, while those under 30 have the option to get them as well, and all age groups will be offered free TRT hormone therapy to get those numbers back up. So as every true
Like, what do you think is gonna happen when you've got... I don't even know if this is going to have a negative outcome, because I feel like when you've got a barracks full of 18-year-old dudes, they're probably all at above average testosterone levels. And you know, there's definitely some strife. There's some, you know, confrontations, some shenanigans that go down, but overall, it's not like, doesn't go full metal jacket. You know what I mean? Typically it doesn't. So, like, I don't know if roid rage would be a big concern, that we're going to have, like, big, massive fights breaking out on military bases across America, because, I mean, it's just testosterone boosters. Like generally, when we talk about roid rage, testosterone definitely increases aggression. That's part of it, but that's manageable for most, from what I understand. I think it's, like, trenbolone, if I'm not mistaken. That's the one that's known to give people roid rage, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think the roid rage comes from testosterone. Maybe I'm wrong, though. I thought it had something to do with an effect that a different anabolic steroid has on the brain with prolonged use. I'm not a doctor, though.
From Navy SEAL to desk clerk about to look Olympia ready for a war with China? Or is this a nothing burger with an outrageous headline attached? Well, potential increase in domestic violence occurrences, the like and subscribe button. And
Oh,
let's
no.
talk about it.
Okay, okay, I did not account for that. I bet there is a increased rate of spousal abuse or just general domestic abuse among steroid users, or certain types of steroid users. That wouldn't surprise me. They're going to be doing it with swabs, which are not accurate. Oh, interesting, Nimbleline. Oh, so they're not even doing, like, a proper, like, blood test for hormones. Because isn't that the only way to really know, is to take a blood sample? I don't even know how a cheek swab would get you a accurate hormone reading. That doesn't really make sense to me. Or do you have, like, hormone tracker, like, traces of your hormone in your spit? I mean, probably, but I don't know. I feel like your blood would be the thing to check, and that's typically what they do.
So the military is worried that troops have hormone levels that are out of whack. That statement, in and of itself, is not an uncontroversial thing to have in the back of your head. Between constant sleep deprivation, exposure to not-so-great chemicals 24/7, physical wear and tear that rips out cartilage faster than a surgeon could dream of, and enough daily
make no mistake, there's not like this precedent of, oh yeah, the drill instructors are rough on you, but they're not going to make you do anything that's going to fuck up your body forever. Yes, they fucking will, dude. Those trainings they make you do where they're like, you're running miles and miles and miles, carrying pounds and pounds and pounds of gear. That's definitely like an army infantry thing. If you're going infantry, that's what you're going to be doing a lot of. Dude, it's going to ruin your body. Like, for life. It's going to ruin your body. Yeah, a lot of people don't really account for that when they sign up for the military, is that you are signing up to destroy your body by the time you finish training. God knows what's going to happen to you when you go into service. You might lose a limb, you know, step on an IED. There's horrible things could happen to you. It's very, very dangerous. Not dangerous necessarily in all cases. It's more danger implies that it's a risk. It's more that, like, you are guaranteeing harm to yourself when you sign up. So I do have respect for people who serve in the armed forces. I do. And I know it's not a very leftist opinion to have, but I don't know. Maybe it's just because I grew up in the South, and it's just kind of a value that gets instilled in you when you're growing up. It just hasn't gone away. I don't know.
Stress to give the Dalai Lama night terrors. All of those things are going to make the human body get a little out of whack. There is a reason I couldn't stand or walk for more than 10 minutes without pain before I turned 20. Now that I'm 30, that number is down to 5 minutes. Also, drinking alcohol and having a diet that looks like what a 10-year-old would ask for their last meal and doesn't contain a single vegetable also lowers testosterone, but I don't know if people are ready for that conversation. There have been numerous studies done over and over the...
Junk food literally lowers your testosterone, it's true. It is true. Like, any kind, like, junk food or being overweight reduces your testosterone, I believe. One of the big things you can do to boost your T is just to lose fat, and lower your body fat percentage. So this is why, like, if you're 28 and your T is a little low, but you're also a little chunky, start doing cardio and exercising regularly, and you're probably just going to have your T levels go up naturally to exactly where you need them to be.
years that show things like Ranger School graduates having significantly low testosterone levels following their training. And same for special operations folks after deployments or long periods of time with high op tempos. This is also coming around as the military is revamping how it tests body fat percentages in soldiers to a stricter system that had many who passed the old test just fine now being labeled as too fat to be in uniform. Now, wanting to make sure that your troops don't have weird hormone problems or carry too much body fat are not bad things at all in general. As much as I liked asking overweight soldiers, what'd you have for lunch? Everything. I would have preferred that an opportunity to make those jokes wasn't there by not having fat soldiers in the first place. Testosterone is...
I mean, obesity is a really big problem in America, and like, the problem is the conversation gets focused a lot on the idea of kind of just shitting on fat people, you know, like there's either this like somewhat toxic but not very like prevalent like sort of body acceptance movement that goes beyond just being against body shaming and goes into the sort of like, you know, the genuinely healthy at any size movement thing. And I obviously, like, you can't be healthy at any size. There's definitely sizes where too small or too big, you enter the unhealthy zone by medical factuality, right? But the problem is, there's not really a discussion anyone wants to have about why the obesity epidemic is a thing, because everybody wants to treat it like a moral failing of the person who's overweight. And like, even if that person is binge eating or just really loves junk food and has no like control or willpower, it's like, I find it really hard to judge those people, because for me, like, I got lucky in the opposite direction of somebody who has like eating problems and eats a ton and gets really overweight. I happen to have a pretty fast metabolism and always have. And I did used to have a really big appetite, but it shrunk as I've gotten older. So I have no problem keeping weight off whatsoever. And I don't really deal with like cravings for junk food. Like, I just don't get the cravings. I don't have to fight any kind of junk food craving or anything like that. And so when I find out somebody does, when I find out somebody who is overweight, when they're not eating, all they can think about is food, because that's how their brain is wired, and they are always hungry. They're always miserably yearning for a snack. It's like, man, that is hell. That is hell, and it is unfair. Like, to morally judge somebody as a failure for being overweight when that is their life, like, that's their life, when I'm underweight even maybe, but probably around like healthy weight, I'm healthy weight not because of any kind of exercising and willpower that proves some kind of moral accomplishment. I just lucked out in not having any of the cravings that this person does. And now people judge this person as having failed some kind of trial. It's like, maybe a lot of people have these eating urges, or maybe they think they do. Like, maybe they just get peckish for a snack every once in a while, and they're like, oh, I want that cake, but I know I shouldn't, and they decide not to, and they think that's what overweight people feel, but they just give in. When it's much more of, like, from what I understand, if you've got, like, a serious overweight issue, it's something to do with the way your brain is wired, or even with how your brain is producing hormones. And that's why Ozempic was such an eye-opener for, I think, a lot of people, was that you can give someone a shot that just wires their brain more or less, and their hormones and their signalers in their body to act normal like everybody else, and then they start losing massive amounts of weight. They don't want to eat as much anymore. It's like, oh shit, turns out these people aren't just moral failures. They aren't just failing at some kind of test of you know, resisting the desire to eat or resisting eating. They are literally wired differently. And if you wired them like everybody else, they wouldn't have this problem. I know I stun-locked in this for a while, but I feel very strongly about it.
Naturally, something required for both men and women to not only have optimal physical performance, but just normal bodily functions in general.
Oh, also, a lot of people's eating habits, even if they don't eat a lot of people's eating habits can lead to being overweight, no matter what you eat. So, for instance, binge eating. That is to say, not like basically fasting all day. Like, if you're the kind of person who doesn't eat all day and then has one like full meal, that actually makes you more likely to gain weight. As long as you're eating a big meal every day, you won't really go into the negative unless you're eating really calorie deficient foods, like really low calorie dense foods. Then you'll definitely start to get into the losing weight zone. But eating a full meal once a day is actually the worst thing you can do. The best thing you can do is eat the same amount of food or more in smaller portions constantly throughout the day, because your body regulates fat burning based on how frequently it has access to food. When you starve your body for long periods, even 12 hours, 18 hours, 16 hours, that long, and then eat a big meal, your body thinks, oh, we're going long bouts without food. I need to save this. You know what that means. That means you're going to put on a little weight. And so those like long fasts between meals are actually bad for you. You're not losing weight. You're not actually going into the negative during those fasts and just kind of like you're actually like constantly building more fat by doing that, believe it or not. Xander Hall can confirm, used to binge eat when I was super depressed and still struggling with it. Yeah. I eat like 1,000 calories a day, eat one meal and still lose or stay the same way. Okay, yeah, it's the amount of calories that does matter a lot, but how much that gets turned into fat there's a lot of it that goes into how frequently you eat. Eating small meals frequently tells your body, oh, we've got plenty of food, no need for fat storage. We're food abundant.
More than enough scientific evidence to back this kind of idea up. But like anything I talk about on this channel, it's not as simple as just getting dudes on TRT so they can do 5 more push-ups than they could before. Now, before I get into the more sciencey side of things, I want to talk about how this looks from just a pure military perspective and how it might cause some issues. First, it's important to keep in mind that once you get on TRT,
I love those helicopters, dude.
It's for
those
life.
Are sick.
Once you introduce a lot of hormone therapies, it's a bit of a lifelong sentence, and getting off of it is not easy and will more than likely land you in an even worse state of health than before you started.
Yeah, you can't just go cold turkey off of hormones once you get like hormone supplementation, dude. That's not, no. You're on you're on T for life. Well, yeah, I think for life now. I don't think, even when you're like an old decrepit man, I don't think you can go off of it. I think your body will break down even faster. It really catches up to you when you're like old towards the end of your life.
Best case scenario is that you go back to your lower numbers prior to TRT. Anytime you have a service member start any kind of medical anything, you have to think about it in the worst case scenario. What happens if they have to suddenly stop it with no access to medical facilities while in a long duration combat environment?
Yeah, like, oh my god, all of our soldiers having to go cold turkey on their T because they're deployed for a month and there's no supply lines because we're in an actual conflict. Oh, bro. Or there's minimal supply lines? Dude, our soldiers would be degrading, withering away on the battlefield. That's really bad. I didn't even think about that.
Post-CRT therapy.
And that's why I do not work in logistics in the U.S. military, because I did not think of that.
Therapies require a person to get their injections or whatever 2 to 4 times a month, though many studies are showing that doing it even more frequently is preferred and helps with hormone stability. That is perfectly fine if you are in a garrison environment where most of the time is spent sitting around or just training on your base. And even sending a guy off to run to the doctor for a couple hours in the middle of a larger or longer training exercise isn't the biggest deal in the world. The problem is when you get into actual real world fighting, which is, the actual time and place, having better health would actually pay off for your military. Talk to any service member of any branch of any military of any country ever, and they will tell you stories.
Like, it's a big boon as long as they don't get cut off from it, right? Like, it would basically lead to so many of our soldiers becoming reliant on daily injections. It might be bi-daily. I've watched a podcast where one of the members of said podcast is on testosterone, is on a bunch of steroids, including T-boosters, and I think he injects, it's an injection into his ass cheek at least daily. Estrogen injections are weekly. Oh, we're talking about anabolic steroids. It's a bit different. I'm pretty sure T-boosters for cis guys taking T is daily ass shot. Or maybe it's just because the guy that I watched is doing like the most you can get away with doing without killing yourself, which is very like him to be doing. But yeah, he gives himself multiple shots in the ass daily, actually. It's FPS Russia, the gun tuber guy. He's on an insane steroid cycle, or at least he was a few years ago. I feel like he's probably still on it. But yeah, pretty insane.
Of supplies, not showing up late, or at the very least, missing something important in general. Not having access to your hormone therapy because the supply truck couldn't get to your specific dogged fighting position in the middle.
Okay, I have to point out how hilarious it is that, like, 2 years ago, we were all talking about how the U.S. Military would no longer be paying for service members' hormone therapy. And now we brought it back to, but now they will be paying for, all of the soldiers that are cis guys' hormone therapy, which means we're going to be spending infinitely more money on hormone treatments for our soldiers than we were when we were doing it for trans people. Because think of how many trans people that we were paying for the hormones of in the military. Probably not that many. Now think about how many guys in the military we're going to be paying for the testosterone for. Yeah, that's a lot of our tax dollars. The irony that Americans were fooled into thinking they should be concerned about their tax dollars going to pay for trans soldiers transitioning, and now all of their tax dollars are going to go to cis soldiers transitioning further into being cis. The irony is amazing. Now you lose even more tax dollars because you fucking fell for it again, buddy.
Of the woods is going to spell disaster for anyone actively on the therapy. And this isn't just an issue with TRT.
Not talking to him, I'm talking to like the MAGA people.
The DOD/DOW has put a lot of thought into this in the past, because even if a medication or treatment can bring someone up to a full war-fighting status, it's going to cause more harm than good if they can't operate without it. Every single medical anything from ibuprofen to literal Colombian bang bang has to pass the military's basic deployability test. First is that ideally the trooper should be able to carry a 3 to 6 month supply of it on themselves. Yes, that's going to be a lot of pills.
That's a lot of money
shaking around in your rucksack, but it's better than having...
Is it pills? I'm pretty sure it's not pills. I think it's injections. Like it's like what he's got on screen. It's a vial of liquid. And you've got to have like a syringe a day. You can't reuse syringes. We're talking kits of a bunch of vials of fluid that can break, by the way. And God, the kits will probably have to have 100 needles each. And then you've got soldiers carrying around a shitload of syringes. I'm sure they probably got a ton of syringes already on their kits, though, right? Right? Like that just seems like the kind of thing you need to have a lot of. But 100, like, because we're talking like we need there to be no shortage of clean new syringes for them to use. There needs to be no shortage of vials, because these dudes can't be going off of, like, they can't be on T for 2 months and then be going off of it for even a week. Their bodies would fall apart. Like, it would be a massive problem.
To constantly deliver normal doses back and forth for months in a combat scenario. Second, they generally cannot require refrigeration, electricity, or what's called a cold chain, which is basically all the way...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you got to keep the vial in your freezer, right? Like somewhere cold.
You're cooling down medications from start to finish that are going to ensure it eventually gets to the soldier without becoming too warm at some point in transit. On top of that, it has to be able to tolerate heat, cold, and sunlight, because storing in a cool and dark place ain't exactly a luxury you can afford in the middle of a war zone. Next, it has to be able to be taken if the person is experiencing some level of dehydration. Not enough that the dehydration itself is causing medical issues, but in scenarios where a soldier or Marine is sweating more than he's taken in because the jungle...
Dude, staying hydrated is so difficult in normal circumstances, but yeah, real. Like, these guys are probably all dehydrated as fuck out in the field. And yeah, it's a real concern. Your body reacts to things super differently when your sodium is low, when your water is low. It's bad.
Or desert is doing its thing.
Jessica Davis.
The medication still has to be able to work normally. And lastly, it cannot require what the DoD refers to as an evacuation, meaning you can't constantly be pulling someone from a combat zone so he or she can get blood work or monitoring done. And the ultimate thing to actually pass everything on top of those questions is to ask if the soldier would still be able to perform without that medication. Yes, their performance would probably be degraded, but it wouldn't be catastrophic to their health, which would have snowball effects on everyone else around them. Now, troops are often given things that break these rules, but are usually labeled as non-deployable, meaning, yes, they can train and help their unit stateside, but they can't go with them when everyone loads up on a plane to go overseas. And let me tell you, they are strict about that one. Even troops that would only be sent on rotations to places like Eastern Europe or South Korea are not allowed to be on those treatments, even if the permanently stationed troops there just a few miles next door are non-deployable themselves and on the exact same medication. Now,
So is Pete Hegseth and the Department of War going to change these rules about who can be on what? Or are they just, is this all just going to be a nothing burger at the end of the day because there's no one in the military who's actually really going to qualify to be able to stay on T? Like, in practice, is this just a nothing burger, it seems? Like, that's what it's coming off as, unless they decide to change the rules to make this actually happen, which they might.
hormone therapy kind of sits on a middle ground of breaking those rules and not breaking those rules. Test does not need to be refrigerated, and a soldier will not instantly die if his weekly blood work or the therapy was interrupted for a few weeks. As it stands, troops on any kind of hormone.
I mean, they won't die. There's certainly, I don't think, a risk of death, but dude, if I'm not mistaken, going off of it leads to pretty immediate negative reactions. Like, you kind of just feel like shit, right? Like, it's not going to kill you. I'm pretty sure it just puts you in the kind of condition you don't want to be in when you're a soldier, right? Like, here, let me check. Let me make sure I'm not wrong. Quitting testosterone like TRT cold turkey rapidly plummets your hormone levels. This triggers a severe energy crash, muscle loss, weight gain, low sex drive, and intense mood swings. Because the therapy shut down your natural production, your body struggles to make its own until your system gets time to adjust. When you take testosterone from an outside source, your brain receives a signal that you have enough of the hormone. To keep things balanced, your body essentially puts its own testosterone production on pause. If you stop cold turkey, you remove the external supply, but your body isn't ready to instantly start making its own again. This gap causes a sudden drop in your hormone levels. You may feel extreme fatigue, brain fog, and a severe drop in energy. Your sex drive or libido will drop sharply, and you may experience erectile issues. You'll likely lose lean muscle mass, feel weaker at the gym, and gain fat easily. That's the whole, like, withering away thing I pointed out. It is common to feel irritable, anxious, or depressed while your brain readjusts. Your testicles will temporarily shrink or soften while trying to wake up and restart their natural hormone production. Most of the time, your body's... I'm sorry, I'm still thinking about, testicles soft. Sorry, it's still really funny. Most of the time, your body's ability to produce its own testosterone is not permanently damaged and will eventually bounce back. However, the severity of the symptoms and how long it takes to recover depends on your age, how long you use testosterone, and your baseline health. Because of these harsh effects, medical professionals highly advise against quitting cold turkey. Well, like I said, not lethal, but just the kind of consequences you don't want in your soldiers. We want hard nut soldiers, bro. Our soldiers need to have hard, like rock hard testicles. They don't need to be small, and they don't need to be soft.
Therapy aren't automatically kept from deploying. It's a case-by-case basis, and it depends a lot on the specific therapy, where they're going, and what they'll be doing when they get there. If an Air Force colonel is doing a rotation to Germany, and his job requires him to be permanently planted at a desk, him being on light hormonal therapy because he's in his early 50s ain't a big deal. If a 20-year-old private is in total pituitary shutdown and is about to be sent in to serve as human drone detector for 9 months in a country you've never even heard of, odds are he's not going to be allowed to go. That said, injecting yourself in a foxhole after you haven't showered in weeks ain't exactly best practice.
True. That's what I'm talking about. The needle thing is insane. Like, because it's not pills. You're not taking pills for this, or at least most people aren't. It's a needle, and you can't reuse needles. And you also have to sterilize your skin, and the whole area has to be clean. Otherwise, you can risk a pretty bad infection if you're using needles in like a trench or a cave. A lot of caves. Our soldiers spend a lot of time in caves, surprisingly, when they're deployed. So, like, yeah, you really got to be careful about that. Pills for this are rare. I mean, they're also probably not as good, right?
Is going to be weird and definitely lead to unintentional pokes here and there. And walking around with your assault pack full of T-vials is going to make your patrol sound like a group of high schoolers walking to a party. Now, there are other ways of doing TRT, like...
And they're also gonna sound like a bunch of fucking heroin addicts, because you're gonna hear a bunch of plastic, maybe metal, probably plastic syringes, like, clicking around in their packs. Like, hundreds of them.
Gels and patches, and that would solve the problem of actually administering it, but nothing will actually solve the problem of making sure a soldier has access to it
Or is it gonna be loaded up like the medic from TF2?
in the first place. Logistics in the 2020s has proven to be pretty damn hard. Keeping troops supplied with the bare minimum to fight, like water and ammo, is, like everything else, falling prey to the drone menace. But even in times when the US had essentially total dominance over land and air, like Iraq and Afghanistan, troops often still went weeks without supplies and months without relief. Another thing to consider is that unlike Iraq and Afghanistan, where service members operated out of large posts or at the very least forward operating bases in the middle of nowhere, they were still able to store large amounts of supplies that could last long amounts of time before needing to get more. The US is expecting that in the next fight, that kind of thing will be left in the past a good bit. Units will have to operate more dispersed for longer periods of time and not stay in any one location a minute longer than they need to. The closest thing they're going to get to a forward operating base is the shallow grave that they dug for themselves to sleep in that night.
Yeah. I don't know what's going to come of this, but it is ridiculous that Pete Hegseth is trying to alpha maleify the U.S. military. Listen, don't get me wrong. Obesity, even in the military, is a big problem, but in America is an epidemic. And like I said before, I see it as a disease of sorts more than I see it as any kind of moral failing. So I'm not on like the fat, like, acceptance healthy at any size movement, or at least what most people think of when they think fat acceptance. It's more that, like, it's just not a thing to attack people for. It's not like a failing of any kind. You know, it's borderline immutable. Not that it can't be changed, it's more that there's a reason why some of us are overweight and some of us aren't. And for a lot of people, it's not actually the fault of their own, right? Like, it's not to my credit that I'm this thin, for instance. Anyway, folks, if y'all enjoyed this segment, then please consider leaving a like and a comment down below. Subscribe and ring the bell icon if you want to see more from me in the future, and follow my social medias linked down below if you want to see more from me on other platforms. But of course, thank you for watching as always, and I hope that you have a good one, my friends.